There's a reason your physique progress is painfully slow. And I know what you're thinking. You go to the gym consistently, you train hard, you eat clean, you go through periods of fat loss, you go through periods of building muscle in a building phase, yet your physique still doesn't seem to change. And year on year, you barely notice any big differences in how you look. Lose a bit of fat in fat loss, build a bit of muscle in the building phase, lose a bit of fat again in your next fat loss phase, but nothing ever significantly changes in how you look. Well, in this video, I'm going to be explaining exactly what is holding you back from the physique you want, where you're seeing shredded abs for the first time and you're filling out your physique and filling out your t-shirt in all the right areas when it comes to building muscle in your building phases. And I'm also then going to explain exactly what you need to change in order to get there and in order to start seeing real results. Before we get into that though, you're probably thinking, why the fuck should you listen to me? I've been in this industry now for over 7 years and I've helped plenty of men and women who are frustrated with how they look that have now gone on to transform their physiques. I've personally also went through a huge transformation in the past 8 years, and this is my most recent transformation now from my 9-month building phase from June of 2025 to March of this year. I'm now in the process of getting shredded again for the photo shoot on the 12th of June. So I'd like to think I've got skin in the game, not just with getting life-changing results for myself, but also with others too. And by the way, if you did want to inquire about working with me one-to-one, click the link in my description to apply for one-to-one coaching. Aside from that, let's get into the video. So what I want to do is, I want to explain it based on this body fat percentage chart of where you think you're at now compared to where you want to get to, okay? And I'm going to use a specific example once I do go through this, and then I'm going to go through what the timeline looks like for you and how it plays out in the wrong way, essentially. So first of all, just take a look at this chart. This is roughly how a physique looks in terms of leanness at each body fat percentage. Now what I want you to do is, I want you to firstly pick where you think you're at. So let's say hypothetically we're 22%, and then to get to visible abs territory we want to get to 15%. To get to shredded abs territory we want to get to 12%, 10% as an example. Keep that in the back of your mind. And now what I want you to do is look at this timeline. This is a journey planner with the dates here, the weeks left in your transformation, the phase that you're in, and then just ignore the training split. That's obviously not relevant for you, that's not specific to you. And then the key notes and adjustments tab here as well, which I'm going to take you through right now in terms of how this does play out for you. What tends to happen is, let's say your goal is to get from 22% to 10% body fat. You're going to need around 12 to 14 weeks to do that, essentially. So what tends to happen is, at the start of fat loss, it feels easy. Everything feels straightforward. You get to around 16 to 18% body fat with no issues. You lose around 6 to 8 kilos. But all of a sudden, you start to reach plateaus. You run into adherence issues with socials. You feel starving. You feel drained. Getting your own head around losing muscle, and you start to feel a bit smaller. Then all of a sudden, when we get around 7-8 weeks into the diet, just before everything's about to change and just before you're about to see shredded abs is when you will throw in the towel. You're not motivated to diet anymore and you don't want to lose muscle, so you just decide to maintain for a bit. You decide to then go back into a bulk. So during this little maintenance phase at around June time, the end of June, and bear in mind this might not be the specific timeline for you in terms of dates, but I'm just using it as an example because this is what tends to happen this time of year. Let's say we get to the end of June, we don't want to diet anymore, worried about losing muscle, all these different things start to cause us issues. We'll maintain for a bit until your holiday. All the good habits then that you had in these first 6 to 8 weeks of fat loss start to go out the window. Socials start to ramp up, but you start gaining kilos of fat back every other week. As the weeks go on, this isn't a lean building phase. You start feeling softer and softer over summer and after your holiday as well. Before you know it, you're right back to where you started at the start of May here at 22% body fat. And that's after only going through a building phase for around 6 to 8 weeks. So you then go on holiday, you come back, you don't want to go into another bulk yet because you're feeling too soft. So then you start another mini cut and it's a similar story. First 6 to 8 weeks is fine. You only lose around 5-6 kilos. You go from around 21 to 25% body fat, and you then get to around 16 to 20%. But if we look at the body fat percentage chart, we're still not at visible abs yet, below 15%. So you've stopped in the awkward in-between stage where you feel a little bit flat in your muscles, but you don't feel lean enough to see visible abs yet, and that gets in your head. So what happens then is, you want to start your winter bulk. And it's the same story as the last bulk. You gain weight too fast, eating shite, being in way too much of a big surplus, and you say to yourself it's fine because you're bulking. Socials ramp up over Christmas with loads of extra food and ale. You then feel fluffy again in January and you want to cut, despite not gaining much size in your building phases. So it's the same story again when it comes to fat loss. Motivation is high for fat loss for the first 4 to 6 weeks. Weight is dropping off nicely. You then reach a plateau again at some point in February. You run into adherence issues with socials, feeling starving, feeling drained, getting your own head around losing muscle and feeling smaller. And by the time it gets to March, you don't know what to do next. You don't know whether to maintain, you don't know whether to build some more muscle until close to summer, and then repeat the same cycle again, all over again next year. Now, if you can relate to this, and I'm hitting the nail on the head, you can see exactly how this is causing you to look the same all year round, because I like to call this the half in, half out mindset. You're not fully invested in each phase. You're only half in, half out of each phase all year round. So what that always means is you're always going to make a tiny bit of progress with fat loss here, a tiny bit of progress with building muscle in your building phase. And it's going to be like that all year round, and the phases aren't going to last very long. You're going to keep chopping and changing phases every 6 to 10 weeks. But this is what's keeping you looking the exact same. And it all starts from not being able to successfully get yourself to shredded abs territory first. That's what then accumulates into your building phase not lasting long, you not building the right habits, then go into your building phase to stay lean within the building phase, losing a bit of body fat, gaining a bit of body fat. And if you're stuck in around that 20 to 25% body fat percentage mark, you're always going to go in and out of that all year round. But this half in, half out mindset, it all starts by not succeeding in fat loss. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a different timeline of exactly how this should look for you to actually transform your physique over the course of a year. So you can actually see real results and see real change. So let's say now the goal, again, is to go from 22% body fat to 10%. You need 14 to 16 weeks to do this. So you give yourself that long. As you're going through the process, the solutions to all these problems that do crop up means that you break through the plateaus with the right adjustments to your plans over time to keep you progressing. You account and plan for socials ahead of time. You implement refeeds, diet breaks, deloads, volume adjustments when needed to minimise fatigue and maximise muscle retention. You improve on nutrition to make hunger more manageable and feel more energised throughout. You have the right plan in place to make sure you're retaining muscle and strength numbers alongside all of that. You get shredded successfully in 14 weeks between 8 to 12% body fat. And this is roughly an idea of what you will go through when everything is done correctly to be able to get you to this result, to be able to get you to adhere to your plan, to have a much better mindset around fat loss, stop worrying about losing muscle and size, making sure you're not fatigued and starving constantly, and making sure you're actually factoring in socials to make sure you stay on track through them and don't let them hold you back. And then alongside all of that, it's making the right adjustments to your plans at the right times to break through the plateaus, because the same plan doesn't always work forever, and it's knowing what the right adjustments are to make. So because you've now nailed that fat loss phase and you are shredded, we then go on to your reverse dieting phase, where in September time, you've got shredded for summer, you come back from your holiday, you want to reverse diet out now and make sure that you trim down any excess body fat you've gained on holiday, you hold your composition as you're slowly bringing calories up, you find balance to maintain results and build upon them. Then when you go into your building phase, the benefits are huge from completing that fat loss phase and going all the way with it, because you now have a massive runway to spend a long time building muscle in a calorie surplus, because all the right habits are in place from your previous fat loss phase when it comes to getting shredded. They've transferred over into your building phase. So your rate of gain now is 0.25 to 0.5% body weight per week with the right plan in place, which is the rate of gain I would always recommend to minimise fat gain and maximise muscle growth within your building phase. You're more insulin sensitive because you're shredded, you're very lean, so carbs are going to be put to good use. Your muscles are basically going to absorb all those carbs and make good use of them in your strength training sessions. So you're always going to maximise progressions then and be fully fueled for every single session, and your body is just going to be much more primed and responsive to muscle growth because of how lean you are. We then get 6 to 8 weeks into the building phase. You feel big again with more food, but you also still feel very lean. Training feels better than it's ever felt. Strength numbers are going through the roof. Your lifestyle is being balanced nicely in a surplus with an off-plan meal per week, not more than that, alongside your calorie surplus. Strength numbers keep going up and up every single week. And when you get to around the 16-week mark, this is where you will notice size being gained massively while still feeling lean, providing all of this has been absolutely nailed at the start of your building phase, and obviously we've got ourselves shredded. We then get to the back end of the building phase at around week 20. You start to feel a bit softer, but you understand this is part of the process because you've got a much better mindset towards it, and you're still lean throughout because you've spent so much time in fat loss getting yourself shredded. So it's okay to feel a little bit softer at the back end of a building phase. You've got a massive return from that in loads more muscle gained from being in the calorie surplus in a long period of time, progressing your training, progressing your numbers in the gym, and nailing the basics around that. We come to the back end of your building phase. You feel so much bigger around the areas you've targeted in your program. It's now time to reveal a new physique with another fat loss phase after the 6-month mark. So we can see already how drastically different this is and how drastically different this can play out if you do everything correctly. If you go through fat loss properly and you get yourself shredded, you go through your reverse diet properly to maintain your results, you go through a lean building phase, you can spend this long in a building phase then and you will maximise muscle growth over a 6-month period. You aren't growing muscle in 8 to 10 weeks. That is why the half in, half out mindset is killing your progress in a building phase, because when it comes to 8 to 10 week mark, usually you feel too soft and fluffy, so you don't want to carry on with it. But because we spent a good amount of time getting shredded, we've got that runway to play with now, and you've been able to go through the building phase over a period of 6 months. So by the time you now get to your next fat loss phase, you've got so much more muscle mass, you've got a lot less body fat to lose, so it will feel easier than last time. You start this fat loss phase repeating all the same basics last time, you've started it leaner, so there isn't as much to lose as last time. It feels as easy as last time because all the right habits are being maintained. You're leaner, you've got more muscle mass, food doesn't have to drop as low because you have more muscle. You start to get that shredded look back when it comes to April. This then completes your physique transformation over the course of a year, where you are now shredded next summer but with a lot more muscle mass, and that's exactly how the process should look, roughly. So just from me explaining that, hopefully now you can get a good perspective on how different that is to this, okay? And the underlying factor between the half in, half out mindset timeline compared to this timeline and how this does play out with your physique transformation is that it all starts with nailing fat loss first and getting yourself shredded. So if these are the type of issues you're running into now, where you're reaching a plateau, you're running into adherence issues with socials, you're feeling starving and you're feeling drained, these are the issues you need to solve first, alongside obviously getting your own head around losing muscle and feeling smaller. These are the issues you need to resolve in order to set off this cascade of events where your physique will dramatically change over time, where you get shredded, you reverse out properly, you go into a building phase properly, you stay lean within your building phase with a slight rate of gain, and you're in that building phase for 6 months. You come out of the building phase, you go into fat loss again, you then get shredded again with more muscle, and that's what completes your physique transformation. In order to go through all that process in the right way, it starts by solving these issues. So what you need to do after watching this video is go to the link in my description, download my free guide and free video on how to get shredded. I break down exactly how to solve all these issues and how you should lay out your plans throughout your fat loss phase in order to get shredded whilst retaining muscle. So that's the next video you need to watch now in order to get this right. And once you do get that right, that's when your physique will dramatically change, not just in fat loss but also in your next building phase. So if you found this video useful, click the link in my description below, go and watch the how to get shredded video, and I promise you, you will find that useful.